Well, I'm talking about liquid. Rich enough to have your own jet. Rich enough not to waste time. Well, in my book, you either do it right or you get eliminated. They're analysts. They don't know preferred stock from livestock, all right? The new law of evolution in corporate America seems to be survival of the unfittest.
Aloha, stock traders, talk traders. Siffy took over the show, fired STT. Nah, just kidding. His daughter is actually getting inducted to the National Honor Society tonight, so he's not going to be with us. But I got the rest of the gang here. Let me introduce Haas.
Hey, what's going on tonight, Sippy?
Just trying to do something I'm not used to here, so roll with me. Next up, I got Sumo.
Hey, Sifikia. Glad we got somebody else filling in for STT tonight. Those are some awfully big shoes tonight, so don't trip.
Yeah, you hear me trying to be real serious with my voice? And we got Cop. What's up, Cop?
Hey, what's going on, Siffy?
Nothing.
This is like a groove pitch for you, isn't it?
Yeah, this is awesome, man. I'm having a blast. I'm trying to pretend like I'm Mike, but without further ado, guys, what I'm really excited about tonight, besides having you all here and taking over the show, is that we got an exclusive interview tonight with CEO of SVMI, Serge Monrose. And Cop, go ahead and take it away.
All right, thanks, Siffy. We're here with Mr. Serge Monrose, as Siffy just stated, the CEO of Savvy Corp, stock ticker SVMI. Mr. Monrose has a diverse history and background in electromechanical industry, focused on the space industry, electronics, mechanics, that field itself, as well as being an inventor and with multiple patents and patent pendings. This interview, what I want to cover is I want to go into the background of the company, the business objectives, plans or strategies, any alliances or strategic partners, potential investors, and what Mr. Monrose would want shareholders to actually know. Welcome to the show, Mr. Monrose.
Thank you. Nice being here.
Well, I know it's not easy to take the time out of the busy day, and I appreciate you doing that. How about if we get started with describing to our audience what your company does?
Well, we are a company that pretty much sells my inventions. I have a few products. We have a flagship product that's called the Dyno Valve, and what it does is recirculates engine gases and reburns them. And we also have a Dyno Valve Pro. The Dyno Valve is strictly for gasoline. The Dyno Valve Pro is for diesel. We also have upcoming products, but we're putting those on the background because we want to wait till we get these things launched. The flagship product is the Dyno Valve. What it does is recirculates the gases inside the combustion chamber, inside the crankcase of your engine. It replaces the current PCV valve on the existing cars. It also it goes in some cars that don't have PCV valves. They have what they call orifices, so it replaces that. And what a normal PCV valve in an engine is just like a cork. It plugs it up. The way it works is normally in an internal combustion engine, when there's a spark plug ignition, there's an explosion that pushes the piston down. Well, about 20% of that explosion is wasted, and that forces the gases, the unburned portion of the gases, to go around the rings and into the crankcase. Well, because there's so many explosions from all these spark plugs, that means there's a lot of unburned, undetonated fuel that gets into the crankcase. The existing PCV valve system in a vehicle is like a cork. It just allows it to build up in there and eventually turns into carbon, and then it falls into the crankcase and turns your oil black. And it's just that's why you have to change your oil every 3,000 miles. And eventually it wears your engine out. Normally engines that are clogged up like that will last 100,000, a little over 100,000, and they'll need to be rebuilt because the carbon that's inside the oil acts like a lapping compound. It's very abrasive, and it goes in there and wears all the moving parts of an engine. So what we do, we have a product that replaces that valve, and it's a solenoid that is being modulated by a microprocessor that we put on your firewall. The microprocessor picks up a signal from your timing system. If it's an older vehicle, it picks it up from the negative side of your coil. On newer vehicles, it picks it up from the fuel injector, any one of the wires on a fuel injector. The thing is that there's more to it. There's also timing sequences that are programmed into the controller. The controller itself is a flashable unit, meaning that it's upgradable. So as we're developing for different vehicles, right now we have 5 kits. One kit is the one that we use for a universal installation, which would be anything with a fuel injection system. The other ones are more leaning towards the old vehicles, the ones that have distributors, coils, and those are for a 4, 6, and 8 cylinder. But what we're doing is we're actually improving on the program inside. It's the firmware that I write, and it goes inside the controller. That firmware changes, for different engine groups. So we're always on a dyno, always perfecting it. And instead of just having 5 kits, we probably will end up with 15 or 20 kits. And what it'll do is it'll actually optimize certain engine groups, GM engines, V8s, V6s, and 4 cylinders. We'll be able to optimize all the different engine groups, meaning that we'll get similar results from every installation. Right now, they vary a lot because on one engine you might get 3 miles a gallon better. On another engine, you'll get maybe up to 10 miles a gallon. So it's sort of a broad spectrum, but we're doing really well. What it's doing now, also, what we found out is that not only do you get better fuel economy, but the main reason for inventing this was to lower the emissions. Because the engine breathes now, because before it was so clogged up, it wouldn't even breathe. So you can imagine yourself running down a track trying to breathe with just a little orifice in your mouth. You really can't. So this allows the engine to breathe. It removes all the carbon from the engine. So within a few hundred miles, your engine is already getting cleaner. It automatically cleans the engine to where it eliminates all the carbon from within the engine. And you can tell usually when you take your finger and you go to the exhaust pipe, you see a black carbon on your finger. If you wait a few hundred miles or even 1,000 miles, you go back and you could take that finger and put it back in the exhaust pipe to see there's no carbon. We also noticed that the emissions are lowered tremendously. On the carbon monoxide, we lower that on the average about 30%. On hydrocarbons, we've done 55, 60%, but on nitrous of oxide, which is the ozone gas, it lowers it roughly about 90%. And that's been through our executive order, which is verified by the ARB. So we got really great emissions. So anybody that's green out there that really wants to reduce their carbon footprint, this is the best product there is. It's not only reducing your engine lasts longer. We have vehicles that come in at 100, 200, 300,000 miles, and they actually have cleaner engines at 300, 400, 500,000 miles than they did when we initially installed the valve. So and the engine, because your oil stays cleaner, because then it gets contaminated so quick, then you could have a longer period of time between all your installations.
Sure.
So you have you have less oil consumption, you have better fuel economy, you lower the important gases, which are the ozone gases, and you lower CO2, which is directly connected to global warming. So it's a great all the way around. It's good for the consumer because, as you know, the fuel prices are going to be going up here pretty soon. And then, they're not going to build that pipeline from Canada to Texas.
Yeah,
that means that fuel prices will go up probably by summertime. So it's a big deal for the consumer. The best thing is for the environment, of course, because by lowering all the CO2 and all the nitrous oxide, you have a much cleaner environment and people can breathe. So that's a plus. And then your engines last longer. So instead of having to buy a car every 2 years, you could then keep your cars for a lot longer. Which again, if you have a fleet of a lot of vehicles, then your bottom line is reduced tremendously.
Sure. So
your bottom line is increased, I should say, not reduced, but your expenses are decreased, but your bottom line is increased because you don't have to go out and buy fleets or that many vehicles. You could keep the same ones you have. And
understand. You know what? I just realized that. I mean, clearly, you're mechanical engineering. There is no doubt about that. I think you just proved that over and over again. What I probably should have asked you is, what's your background experience that you got to this level?
In the beginning, when I was really young, I guess I would tear things apart, put them back together, and have extra parts, but I always made it work better. So I started being a nerd. I was just a nerd, and I became a machinist really young. When I was 15 years old, I did a 4-year journeyman, and I actually worked 4 years to become a machinist. I started at 15, and then I became a tool and die maker. So I did that, and by the same token, I was rebuilding engines, rebuilding transmissions, doing all the auto repairs. Then when I started going to school, when I started directing my attention to the profession I wanted to be, I started taking electronics, programming, and it all came together. I've always had my own machine shop on the side, besides working for other companies. I worked for Rockwell International for 13 years. We did the space shuttle program. I moved up the ladder really quick. And so that taught me was the foundation of a company. You know how they say paperwork weighs more than metal, meaning that the process of every step-by-step to build an airplane. It's like a company like Boeing gets rid of 100,000 people and they replace everybody in one day. The next day they're still building airplanes because the process is what leads the company from step to step. So the process itself is what makes a product, and it means that everybody's expendable, but at least you could rely on a company to be there, even though some of the personnel that you started with aren't. So that was the main goal for this company, is to start it with that type of foundation. So everything we've done from the beginning, we built a foundation, was able to get all the tooling done. I've been in manufacturing for 40 years, so I know manufacturing real well. So the way this dyno valve was invented, it was invented to be able to do virtually every type of vehicle with the same valve, for the exception of the program that's in the controller. The controller determines what flow to allow the gases to recycle. It modulates, so depending on the vehicle, depending on the size engine, it sort of modulates. Like an old Indian, you know, when you're sitting there with the smoke signals, it actually modulates the flow that goes through. And by modulating that flow, we can give you a much more consistent burn rate when it comes through and gets recycled. Meaning that you could count on an additional source of fuel, because, as you know, these engines create a lot of blow-by gas, which is all the crankcase fuel that's created from these explosions and the wasted part of the explosion that goes into oil. So all that is fuel, so we have a way to program the flow of that, which allows us to not only improve it, but put it on a dyno and actually modify it at any time, and we could just flash the controller in. And because the unit, the whole assembly is plug and play, meaning you could take the valve out, you could unplug it, you could take the controller, you could unplug it, you could do all these sections while the engine's running, and if any part of the system fails, it automatically resorts to OEM condition, which means original equipment manufacturer. It acts just like the original PCV valve.
Gotcha. Let's talk about the structure of your company a little bit.
Okay.
What's the makeup of your board of directors and the reasoning behind the selection of your team?
We have 3 guys right now on the board of directors. We have Really Rodriguez, which has been in manufacturing pretty much all of his life. He does procurement, and he pretty much for the company that he works for. He works full time for another company. He works part time for our company. We're lean and mean, so a lot of people that work for us actually have full time jobs. There's probably about 10 of us that work there full time, but the board itself is made out of Really Rodriguez, which is secretary, and he also does procurement. So he has a big list of vendors that he deals with for the other company he works for, which is a great experience because he's been handling about $20 million a month in procurement for his other company. So for us, he does our procurement and finds the best possible prices that we need if we have to buy any machine parts or if we have to get any supply, which we do. We buy some things off the shelf. We don't have to manufacture anything that he could buy off the shelf. Then the other board member is a gentleman called Phil Tyson-Ellie. He used to work at Rockwell with me. Now he works at Boeing, but he's quality control. He's been working for quality control all his life. So he's sort of good in what we do because we make sure we have a quality product. We want to make sure it's made in America. Everything is done here in America, and we're all about creating American jobs. So it was just important that we had somebody that knew a lot about quality. And then myself, I'm the CEO. And the reason we have a short board is because we don't want to waste any time making decisions. We have to, so it's a pretty friendly board, and when we want to make a decision, it just takes 3 of us, not a whole bunch of us. So we like to be able to move fast in any decisions we make.
Understand, and that's probably a very wise move. How about let's go into your business objectives and or your business plan. Tell us about what your strategic direction is and your business objectives.
We're trying to pretty much get this product out there, and there's so many internal combustion engines. We're doing it nationwide first, even though we are negotiating with some foreign countries like the Philippines and Brazil. We are trying to license it simultaneously, but our main push and thrust is here in California. We received the executive order September of last year, and it took a while. It took us about 1.5 years to get that. It's a huge thing for us because it takes a lot. It almost protects you more than the actual patent. And what that does, it just says it doesn't violate the original equipment manufacturer warranty, that it doesn't interfere with the OD2 system, which is the onboard diagnostic system on all vehicles. Actually, all the newer vehicles. It was OBD1 up to 1997. After that, it became OBD2, which is a lot more sophisticated, meaning that this device is transparent to the vehicle. You can't tamper with any portion of the vehicle, and so it's hard to get this executive order. After we received the executive order, we had what they call the first generation valve. It had a flow control, which is something that's a manual way to control and calibrate. So our installations were sort of unique. Every vehicle, because every vehicle has a unique installation, we had something that allowed you to have a variable, and then a mechanic could find a sweet spot and tune it in. But we found out that it left openings for tampering, and so we did a few of those. And because there was more parts to the system, the valve itself performed flawlessly. But what the problem was, the flow control, you had different mechanics, different qualifications, and they were being sent all over the country. And so we found that, some mechanics were having problems. Even though we had a PDF file for all the installations online and on our Facebook, we also had videos on YouTube. And it just became, we had a lot more tech support calls than we wanted. So what we did, I went back to the drawing board and actually came up with a plug-and-play unit. And the plug-and-play unit made it a lot better. It made it flawless. It took about an hour off the installation. And now it works much better. We get better fuel results. And because there's less parts altogether, there's less to go wrong. So it became really, really, really a big thing for us. And it was, and it accomplished a lot. So what we did is we did have a few valves out there with the original system, probably about 1,000 of them. So we're going back, and anybody out there that has the first valve, it works great. Most people don't even want to return those because they work so good. We suggest they bring it back, and then we remove the flow control, and all we do is replace the valve, which is the new plug-and-play valve. It's a pretty simple replacement. It takes about 10 minutes, and we don't charge anything. Anybody that wants to get it done can just come in and make an appointment, and we'll do it within 10 minutes it gets done. And so that was the key thing, is being able to find a good way to do lots of installations, being able to do them nationwide without needing a big infrastructure of mechanics or mechanic certification. Even though we do certify mechanics, because we have a fleet of, we call them Dynavalve trucks, and they're like little transit connects. And they have all the tools and all the hardware required to be able to do these mobily. My goal was to be able to go nationwide and start putting these, if you remember the old days, the service stations used to have a guy that would come out and wash your window. This was a way, I think, because I'd like to be part of the solution. I mean, it's a great product, but to be able to get one on every internal combustion engine would take forever. I don't think we'd ever be able to achieve that unless we had some co-ops, unless we teamed up with other companies, which we're trying to do. So we are teaming up with other companies like, like Goodyear tires, Midas, mufflers. There's so many to mention, but we are working with a lot of companies to try to get this so they can have installation centers everywhere. By the same, we're also trying to do franchises on these little transit connects, to where if somebody wants to buy a zip code or an area, they could actually buy a franchise, and then they could actually do installations in their area, which is a big deal because there's so many different cities. And if we go to primary and secondary cities around the United States, we could then put trucks everywhere, and then people could be self-employed, or they could work out of what we call permanent installations. Like we also have other gas stations, repair shops that also install for us. And what we try to encourage is that they have the inventory, that they take care of their own installations, and then anybody that we know that wants a Dynavalve in that area, we just go ahead and refer them to them. So a big push is to try to get an infrastructure of not only permanent installers and permanent installation centers, but also these mobile installation centers, because it's entrepreneurship. We could actually get some people out there that are unemployed that could really help them. They could install 10 Dynavalves in an 8-hour period. The installations usually are about $100 to $150 each, so they could make a good income doing this. And, while they're at it, they might be able to do other auto services besides the Dynavalve. So spreading this across the nation, it would be nice to eventually have over 10,000 of these and be able to create a lot of jobs nationwide and try to help our economy.
Sure, I found it interesting where you said you could never do all the cars on that, and I was actually, when I was doing the due diligence on your company, I wanted to know what the U.S. Department of Transportation, the statistical record showed for how many vehicles were actually, just in the United States. 230 million. So if you got a long way to go if you're going to get to there.
Absolutely.
Now, I understand your exact where you're talking about as far as your business plan and what you're doing. So basically, you have a business that's been operating. You're making dyno valves and those type of things. So is it safe to assume that right now you're in the growth and expansion phase?
Yeah, I would say that because when we originally received the executive order, that gave us the right to go out and do these, and we learned from our installations. Of course, we learned from our mistakes, and we improved the product. And so that was a great step, and now I believe that we've improved it to the next level to where the installations are much easier. And, of course, the third level would be to start having different programs inside the controllers, meaning that we would have more kits, but it would be more engine-specific. So what's really cool about it is that right now in our backyard, we have, 30 million to 40 million cars here in California alone. And we are one of our goals this year is to actually do the validation and the verification of not only the dyno valve, which is for the gas engines, but also do the dyno valve Pro, which is on that the certification is a little different because on those you have to do every engine group. And as you know, when you're looking at diesel engines, you're looking at Caterpillar, you have Detroit Diesel, you have Cummins, you have all these different types of engines, and you have to do the validation and certification on each engine, which normally is about a 90-day process per engine and runs about $60,000 a month just to keep it running because some of these tests are over 1,000 hours of just straight running. So, and then you have to do what you call baseline testing, and then you do modified testing, which is with the devices on it. So there are two types of testing, but that's two things we want to accomplish this year. And they're big things because with the validation and verification, that means that you actually have the endorsement of the government. The executive order is a permit to sell in California and to sell around the nation. Of course, when you go internationally, the first thing they ask is, do you have an executive order? So that's why we started there. We went to the hardest state to get approved, and we accomplished that. That means that anywhere in the world it will be accepted because we have the hardest criteria that we've already gone through. So the next level is to, once the government endorses this with the validation and verification, that means that now we have an open door. We could go to all the agents, all the government agencies, including the military, and there'll be an automatic thing. They'll automatically put the device in there because of the results and because of the emissions itself, let alone about saving fuel. And if you look at some of these fleets, some of these cities have 150,000 vehicles in one city. You have the military that's got hundreds of thousands of vehicles. And just California alone with 30 million vehicles, it's a possibility that we're the only product that could lower the emissions to the point to where it could be mandated. And that means that all the small stations might be able to put these products on their shelf. And because we lower nitrates of oxide so much, it means that the catalytic converter is really not needed, even though it's a law and it has to physically be there. But nowadays, with catalytic converters, they're very expensive, and a new law, because you can't buy aftermarket cats. You have to buy OEM. You have to buy them from the original manufacturers. A lot of these vehicles, you can't buy them anymore. They discontinued them. They don't make them anymore. So an option for somebody that has high nitrates of oxide, but the catalytic converter is no good, we could actually go in there, put the dyno valve on, and it actually, you don't need to have a working catalytic converter as long as your sniffer, which is the pipe that goes in your exhaust pipe, the sniffer is the hose that you test the emissions with. As long as the numbers from all the emissions fall into lower than what is required, then that means that you actually could keep that vehicle on the road. And we do that now with a lot of the BAR's vehicles that are gross polluters. The BAR is the Bureau of Auto Repair, and they're the ones that actually control the 36,000 stations that there is in just California. But as you know, the rest of the nation is going to follow suit. And that means that everybody is going to have the same rules and regulations that California does. I mean, there's some that already do, like Oregon and other states, but eventually all 50 states will have to follow. So that's one of the biggest things is being able to get this. If we get it endorsed by the government, that means we could go to the AQMD, we could go to the ARB, and it's all endorsed by the EPA. That means we have a product that's viable and that it does more than most products out there. And they're trying to go to, windmills, and they're trying to do all these other alternative fuels. We're into that too, but our main goal is to try to use a stepping stone. The dyno valve and dyno valve Pro are a stepping stone, meaning you don't have to change everything. You could just go in there and it does enough to take you to the next step. And because we lower nitrates of oxide so low, we are already in 2030 levels. We're a ULEV and SULEV, which is ultra-low emission vehicle and super ultra-low emission vehicle, which takes you in the years of 2020 to 2030. So we're way ahead of our time, and we have the capabilities of doing that or that just by changing the program.
No, that's a really interesting approach that you guys took to go to, with the California piece, because, I lived out there years ago, and mission wise, it's just, it's painful from a consumer standpoint. I don't want to dive too far into the technicals in this. I just have to know a little bit about this, so I'll ask you. When you talk about the nitrogen oxides, are you also able to, clean, if you will, the sulfur oxides as well as the chlorofluorocarbons?
Absolutely, because I'll tell you why. First of all, you have a much cleaner burn. The reason when you take the fumes, and I'll explain this, try to do it in very simple terms. When you take the fumes from the crankcase and recycle them, this is really, really preheated fuel. It's ready to ignite. It's equivalent to rocket fuel. So it's hot. So when you go into the vacuum manifold and it's introduced with the cool fuels that are existing, it already pretty much warms up the cold fuels, and when it gets into the chamber, it's ready to burst. So when you have the ignition in the chamber, it's a much cooler burn. And when you have, so you have no residue in the chamber. If your cylinders have no residue and nothing left over after that explosion, that means that you don't have any of those unwanted gases. The problem is in today's systems, they have the catalytic converter, because that is there to burn unwanted, what we call hydrocarbons that were left from the explosion, because there's too many of them. So what happens is when you get a really hot burn inside the cylinder, that creates all your sulfur, it creates all these other gases that are really unwanted. The key thing is to have a cooler burn in the cylinder. If you have that cooler burn in the cylinder, you don't have the residue. And if you can have an explosion where there's no more residue, then that's pretty much answers a lot of those questions. You lower nitrate of oxide by 90%. Everything else comes with it, just like the CO2. It's like for every 10 cars, let's say we lower it by 70 and 90%, but let's just say we did 50%. That means for every 10 vehicles you put this device on, it's like removing 5 vehicles off the road.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. Let's kind of go into earlier you mentioned a lot of the different stores and certain things where your growth wise where you're putting your product. I would equate that to some form of strategic alliance or some type of partnership that you're working out to be able to do that. Can you rattle off some of those names again?
Sure. Right now we're pushing fleets, because fleets is when you get Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies with the big fleets. They give credibility. When you could say, this is on this fleet or in that fleet, it just adds credibility to it, makes it much easier than to try to take this to a store or to a third party, which let's say AutoZone or like O'Reilly's or Napa. So we're in the process of doing that, but right now our main concentration is on fleets. And we've already sold more valves this year, which is the third week of January, than we did all last year. We haven't done PRs because, to me, a PR is, I don't like to do any spin. I don't like to boast about anything. I know my job is to try to get the shareholder value up there, but I think that just by getting the revenues up there, it'll do it. I don't want to make promises I can't keep. And we can't do press releases on sales. We have until we get permission from the actual clients. When they give us written permission that we could do this and our lawyers allow us to go ahead and do it, then we do it. Our main goal is to get the revenues up this year. So we already have quite a few fleets. I'd love to mention the names of them, but we do have PR coming in within 2 to 3 weeks, and you'll start seeing some of these big names. So we're talking big names. We have fleets that have 13,000 vehicles, other ones that have 2,000 vehicles, other ones that have 500-600 vehicles, and we're starting to do a lot more installations. We're actually on the road a lot doing at their premises, so they don't even have to come in and have it installed. We go to their place and we actually do installations. So we have some huge fleets. Now,
are you? I don't mean to interrupt you, but do you intend on putting dyno valves in the entire fleets?
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's huge because it's an easy.
Huge. I would say so. 13,000 fleets.
Well, absolutely, and we already have some that have already made commitments to a large fleet. But what's nice about this is that a lot of these fleets are pretty much the same vehicles. A lot of F-154s or a lot of Silverados or a lot of F-250s. You have a lot of vehicles that are pretty much repeated. So it's easier for us to go there, and we tool up, we go in there, we fill up the dyno valve trucks, and we could do 10 of them real simple because we prepare for them the night or previous night. So we could go there, and it's a lot easier than, going to all these different types, makes. So, but we do sell them through the internet. So, dynovalve.com or savvycorp.com. We have Facebook, so we sell them on Facebook, and also we sell them from the website. So we have orders that come in all the time. And on those, we actually are doing installations, step-by-step installations, via PDF files and also videos. So we're putting in new videos now because we replaced the first generation with the second one, which is much easier. So we're starting to get a lot more sales around the United States, and people are starting to ask us, could we participate? Could we help you sell them? Could we be an installer for you? So then we have to sort of check their credentials, make sure that they have good garage insurance, because we're responsible. We have product liability insurance for our installations, but we make sure if we team up with Midas, or if we team up with Goodyear or other smaller repair shops, that they have good insurance, that then they could be responsible for their installations, even though we're always responsible for the product. And there's a money-back guarantee for anybody that buys the product.
Gotcha. Oh no, I'm tracking exactly with what you're saying, but I'm going to bring you back. I got to bring you back down to this. When you do full fleets, I assume you do contractual prices to where they're reduced by them buying the valve through your online store and through you directly, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, one vehicle, one dyno valve going in is how much?
Okay, it's actually $399. So you look at $400 for the valve, and then usually about $100 for the installation. Or if you go to your own mechanic, or if you install it yourself, then you save the $100 installation. Again, you're responsible for the installation itself. We'll guarantee the valve.
And what is your return on investment per valve?
It's quite a bit. I mean, we're right now. I wouldn't want to tell you specifically, but you're looking at 300%.
Wow. And you're talking the fleets that you have here. No, I'm with you. I know you probably don't want to dive too far into that, but I'm trying to do some forecasting numbers based off what you're telling me here. I mean, those are some huge numbers.
Well, they are. That's why it's so important to me to increase the revenues by doing the fleet sales. It's not only to do those, by doing the validation certification. I mean, we're talking government. We're already in 3 or 4 police departments. We're getting feedback. They love them, and they're going to be doing some PR pretty soon. We'll do it simultaneously with them. But we're getting some great results, and we're getting in some government, and this is without the validation and without the certification. So, I mean, I could just imagine how it'll excel once we have that from the government. But it's an expensive proposition. I think to do the validation and certification with the government, it's roughly between $500,000 and $600,000. But once you get it, I mean, the whole process takes 6 months, 7 or 8 months, because they actually test it on the road. They'll be driving these things all over the country. It's an endurance test on how long these things last. And, we've got them out there for over 1 million miles, so I'm not too concerned about what they do to them. They're pretty hard to break.
Gotcha. No, normally I would go into asking you what your short-term and your mid-term and long-term goals are, but clearly we're seeing that based off growth and what you're talking about with the fleets and those type of things. So I'm going to kind of just put that one on the burner for next time when you come on the radio show. What I'd like to do, let's go and do potential investors and shareholders, okay? And this is where, if I ask you a question where, I'm prying too much or you're going to get in trouble with your lawyers, by all means, just stop me. So what's your current share structure?
Well, we have, right now we have, I don't know if people look, we're $6 billion authorized. That was there before I was CEO. I was a CTO before, so that structure has been around for a long time. Right now, so it's $6 billion unauthorized. I think it's what we have. I guess it would be on the float. I believe it's 1.2 to 1.5 billion, and this a little over 2 billion is what's outstanding.
Outstanding.
If that's what you're asking for.
Yeah, it is. Okay. Who is your transfer agent, and are investors able to inquire about the share structure of your company? Okay.
It is. Let me see. It's Worldwide Stock Transfer. They're out of New Jersey, Hackensack, New Jersey. And if the investors want to know, they could call us, and if they're interested and actually want to invest, then we will put them, and then you could talk directly to them. But I would say with our approval first.
Sure.
But I have no problem with them talking to them. But the thing is, I don't want everybody just calling them, so I would rather...
it does become a problem for a lot of people. Then your costs increase, right?
Right. So, but the thing is, we don't have anything to hide. I called the TA this morning. So I got as much information as I could from them. But, it's there is no problem, but we just want to be the first ones to be notified first. Because there are people out there that, might buy one dyno valve and they think they're more... I'm just saying, you don't know who's going to call.
No, understand completely, and that's I think anybody who knows business knows that that's probably pretty legitimate.
Right.
You went through a lot of your different revenue streams, and I think that it's pretty clear where a lot of that's going to be coming from. But let's kind of talk about the balance sheet. What's that look like?
Well, last year was not that good. Of course, I've had to bring in money myself through the company, And, you got to build the infrastructure. We were in the process of building the complete infrastructure, again, because we're building a good foundation, meaning that eventually if something happens to me, the company has to survive. So what's nice about the way it's structured is that the people that work there, they're a small group, but they're wonderful people. I love them all. They're like dear friends of mine, but they're all specialized in their field. So I've made them owners of the company. Basically, they're founders. So we have a founder board. We have founders, and they're the ones that would actually take over the company if something happened to me. My family, of course, would always replace me, but they were the ones that would actually run the company, would be the founders. So we have a tightly knit group. And the main thing is to be able to set the foundation for this. So right now the company sort of runs because I'm the blood of the company, because all the technology sits within me, and so I have to be able to protect the shareholders and also protect the people that have worked so hard. My main goal is to make it so the company could survive without me, that my kids are taken care of, and then also that the people that I love dearly are also taken care of. So that's the number one goal. So we put a lot of money and time into the infrastructure. So right now we're building an intranet, and we're doing it with high technology computers. They're all flashback computers, and they don't have hard drives and all that. It's just so because there's so much cyber attacks and so many viruses. I'm sick of it, and I just don't want to deal with that anymore. So we're building a tight intranet. So that means that the system itself will build the dynavalves and step-by-step instructions from A to Z, all the way out the door. And we're also building a sales team. Right now, we've been interviewing some high-powered sales managers. I'm trying to bring somebody in that could actually take over the sales. We have salespeople, and we've done a really great job in finding fleets. We get them out all the time. We have some guys that are really unbelievably incredible in the way that we get fleets coming in. And right now, I'm trying to get the process down. I'm not a salesperson. I'm a scientist, So I wish I was. I wish I had more experience so I could take over that job too, but I can't. So basically, I'm trying to just make sure that we have a good foundation with the right people, lean and mean. And so what I'm trying to say is that I'm going to try to build a good sales team so we could then hit all these different markets. And
well, especially with the fleets that you're getting ready to do, just me, being outside, if you're going to save, the emissions piece, as well as, who knows what, miles per gallon they're going to get with the fuel efficiency. That word of mouth and those type of things are going to expand drastically.
Right.
So I would anticipate you having to hire a much bigger force to be able to do your distribution, your marketing segmentation, all kinds of different stuff.
Right.
Would you say that you're on the verge of just kind of going vertical with this thing?
Yeah, we all think, the whole team, actually, we talk about this all the time. We're really on the verge of exploding. We know so far, because I say our sales have been greater this year already than they have all of last year. That's saying a lot, because we're only in the third week of January. So I really feel this is going to really explode. So I'm hoping that that this year will be the best year ever. Of course, every year that we move on is the best year ever, but we're just hoping that it's a better year. It will be, because it's already a better year now. So unless something happens to the economy or to some kind of natural disaster and all that, I really don't see anything that would stop us from really turning this thing around and getting it and have some high revenues. I really look, because these fleets are huge, and there's such a good profit margin that, to get into millions or even hundreds of millions is not that big of a deal when you have this type of product. This product is the type of product that if you start getting into all these vehicles, it's got the potential of billions. So I see that.
Mr. Monroe, I want to make sure I'm clear on this. Did you say your sales in the 3 weeks of 2012 are more than all of 2011?
That's correct. Last year wasn't that great of a year, but I'll tell you what, we see it already, because we're starting to, ever since we did that plug-and-play valve, we're getting consistency, and that was something that we were really looking for. And, on the average, we're getting calls back from police departments and different municipalities that are averaging 15% that are fuel economy. Now, people would buy the valve if they only have 2%, but when you're at 15% or 10 to 15%, that's huge. There's trucking companies out there that their fuel bill is over $1 billion. Imagine $150 million savings from that. That's huge. Oh,
absolutely. You really believe that in a very short term amount of time that this could be $1 billion company?
There's no doubt in my mind. As a matter of fact, we're going to be doing some PR really soon that's going to show the type of plans I'm talking about. As soon as they get authorization from them, which is coming really soon, I will post those PRs. And they're huge. I mean, we're talking big orders, and we're talking big Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, along with some municipalities, which, it means that, and some government agencies that are amazing. These agencies spread around the whole world, not just, as the government has their hands in every part of the world.
Wow. The one thing I didn't talk about was you do have a website. It's savvycorp.com, correct?
Correct.
Right.
And you can type in dynoval.com or savvycorp.com. We also have Facebook for both of them, Savvy Corp and Dynoval, and we have Twitter. Everything's together. So if you go to our Facebook, you can see the Facebook is more informal, more social. We have a lot of events, and we put them all in there, take pictures of the whole team, and we have fun. So there you see a lot of our followers. Our goal is to really have a big following. I mean, if you look at there's 900 million people on Facebook at any one given time. And if you look,
and they all drive cars.
Yes, it's amazing. So, I'd like to be able to maybe have 5 or 6 million or 10 million followers. Imagine then if we get, you buy a Dynoval and get one for free. Just imagine what that'll do.
That's a nice little strategy. Hi, follow me, be my friend. Oh, buy a Dynoval.
So anybody out there, if you want, you can just join our Facebook and follow us, because we're hoping that this will pick up. And, it does. People love their Dynovals. I mean, pretty soon we're going to be putting a lot of testimonials out on Facebook and all that, so you'll see how many hundreds of people love their Dynoval. And some of these are the original ones, the ones that have over 1 million miles on their vehicles. And like I said, we're asking them to come and trade their valve for the new plug-and-play, and a lot of them don't want to do it. They want to hang out to their valve. So because they're afraid that this new plug-and-play is not going to do as well. But I encourage them to do it because the plug-and-play one is a no-brainer. And if you ever want to take it from one vehicle to another, it makes that change or that transition a lot easier.
Yeah, understand completely. All right, here let me go this route. All right, what do you think makes SVMI a good investment for potential investors? And more importantly, if you had a 5-minute elevator speech that would represent the excitement of the future of your company, what would it be?
It would be let's separate this way. The planet. I mean, the reason I did this initially was I have kids, and I want to make sure that they have kids, and I want to make sure that they breathe fresh air. I don't know if you remember how long ago, 15 years ago, how Los Angeles was and other big cities, Detroit and all them, they were so polluted. And if you look at Mexico City, you see all birds are falling out of the sky. In China, the way they're doing things, you have people with asthma everywhere. It's a serious problem. People don't realize that when you have carbon monoxide and you have nitrogen oxide, all this stuff is really killing our earth. We shouldn't live harmony. I'm a tree hugger to a certain extent, but I also believe in corporations and I believe in the capitalist system. But the thing is that there is a balance. I'm in the middle someplace. I like to get the best of both worlds. So green is a very valid point. Global warming is a very valid point. And, of course, making money is also important, but the whole thing is got to find some kind of harmony between everything and be able to give something back and put something back so your kids and your grandkids can have a better life. So that's the number one goal. Second goal is, the fuel costs are going crazy. And to just get away from petroleum products, it's like, to me, it's like you can't do that. You can't go to wind. It's ridiculous. Right now, wind is so old. They spend so much money on it, but it's so obsolete. It's not even close to its potential. It's going to take decades to get wind power and all these other technologies up to par. So this is a good stepping stone. It's a stepping stone. And like I said, the goal is to, of course, put a Dynoval in every vehicle and a Dynoval Pro in every diesel vehicle and every ship. I'll just give you an example. The pollution that actually goes down. If you look at a bus with most diesels have open loop systems, meaning that they have a draft tube. It's oil from the crankcase just goes right in the environment. And if you look at a bus, on a bus every 80 miles you lose a quart of oil. Now this oil just goes in the street. It's not burnt. It's just excessive oil that gets spun around inside the crankcase and just gets spit out. And that's just the bus. Kenworth truck every 5,000 miles puts out 2.5 gallons of oil. If you look at the ships, the big diesel ships out in the ocean, you can't see what they do because they all go into the ocean. But they're measured by 55-gallon barrels. Now, if you look at the consumption of oil, is 9,760,000,000 gallons of oil wasted every day. Every day. I mean, if the Dynoval and the Dynoval Pro seals the system so it actually takes the oil, separates it, puts the oil back into the crankcase, cleans it, and keeps it clean, and because there's ventilation, it never gets dirty. Just imagine if you could take that 9,760,000,000 gallons of oil and reduce it by 30%. You know, that 30% every day could fill up our reservoirs, and it would definitely take our dependency on foreign oil down to almost nothing. So it's a great stepping stone to be able to go to alternative fuels, but do it in a reasonable fashion. You know, we don't have to do this stuff overnight. You know, like we say, we'll save the planet one vehicle at a time.
Well, sir, I think you got me doing, you know, third nation work right now. I think I'm going to go be a humanitarian. I mean, that's. You're right. You're right on a lot of it.
Isn't it? It's always about if you could do something to help others, you'll be taking care of yourself. I mean, you know, it's not about me. It's about shareholders to me or others. I mean, my number one goal is to help the shareholder because I promised that I would not sell. I haven't sold one trade in the open market, not one share. I'm not going to do it until everybody does it first. I'll be the last one to walk away. Success or failure, I'll be here till the end.
Well, that's pretty impressive. Well, sir, I've asked you a lot of questions that I've came up with. There was a couple of them that I was actually emailed. You willing to answer those?
Of course.
All right. Let me go with this one. About a year and a half.
You'll see about me. You see what you get, and you get what you see.
Well, I think shareholders will like that. About a year and a half ago, you did an interview where you stated that the financials will be brought up to date. There has been progress made. However, the yield sign is still there, and the complete financials have not been filed. Could you please explain the details and tell us when we can expect the complete financials to be filed and the yield sign removed?
Okay, great. That's a great question. And, of course, I'm always overly optimistic. Everything I said I was going to do, I did, but my timing's always been off because sometimes you have to depend on others. So here's where it's at now. We have already engaged with an auditing firm. They are now presently, and just like I said in the last interview, the auditing firm is actually doing 2000. Because let me just go back a little bit. Because we haven't filed for so long, we had to do what they call a jumbo planning. We had to go back and take 3 years and then be able to go back, and we're talking about doing all the accounting for 3 years where sometimes there wasn't any records. This is, so we find it all current and we do a jumbo planning. So what the auditing firm now is going through 2010 and prior and actually auditing those financials right now. So once that they're done, and I'm thinking, they told me we got a late start on the engagement. That was our fault because we got so busy. We actually were hoping to get it started December last year, but it actually did start in January. It's actually started the last couple of weeks of December. So we're looking at maybe getting it done by March sometime. Now, my understanding is once they're done, let's say it's mid-March, once they have the financials audited, then it gets presented to the SEC. And then how long they take, I've been told it could just take weeks. If that's the case, then we should be back on OTC, fully filing. And the reason the yield sign's there is because we're not fully reporting, but we plan on going back to OTC, and we plan on being fully reporting. I'm not going to do all this stuff that I'm doing now and investing so much time and resources and man labor to do this and not be fully reporting. That would be ridiculous. And if I could have done this yesterday, I would have. But as you know, when you're a public company, you have some major expenses. Your attorneys, and we have three different groups of attorneys, and we have so many different attorneys. It's amazing how those billable hours always add up.
Yeah, and they're documented pretty good too, I bet.
Yes, but not an email could be $2,000.
Sure. All right, here's a second one. Okay. Last summer, you filed a Form D with the SEC. To date, have you sold any shares that would be covered by the Form D? And if you have, how many, and what are the proceeds being used for?
So anything that we've done in the past, the money goes right to the company. Every penny goes back to the company. But I don't believe any shares have been sold under the Form D. The Form deal, we have to do that by law in the event we want to sell securities. So, yes, we plan on probably selling securities. Since I've been CEO, I've never engaged with market makers. I've never signed with a market maker and all that because, from the things I've seen, if you don't get good ones and some that you can trust, they really don't care about what your needs are. They're just concerned about making their money. I would love to be able to have, market makers, but until I find something that I know I could trust, we're trying to do it with revenues. But we did file the Form D because we have to sell securities in the future, or if we want to, we at least have to do it. We have to have a Form D for that. And any money we do raise, I'll tell you where initially we'll go. It'll go, if it's not with the revenues, with a combination of securities and the revenues. We're going to get this validation done, validation certification, which is roughly about $500,000 this year. That's the goal, to be able to get that certification because that opens up a 30 to 40 million vehicle market for us, which is huge. And just in California, imagine that right in your backyard. So that is the number one goal. Second goal is the Dynavolt Pro, which is the diesel version. Now, diesel is a lot cruder fuel, meaning it's a bigger valve. It has to go through an oil separator, and it has to go through filtering and all that. So it's a different, more expensive device. But there's so much diesel out there, it's a huge product for us. And it'll actually be a lot bigger than the gasoline product. So we're actually, that will be also validation, verification. But on that, again, we have to go through different engine groups. So we're probably going to hit like the international, like Cummins engine. We'll do the most popular ones that maybe have 40% of the market, and we'll cover those, and we can start selling those, and then we'll go to the next engine group. That's a much longer endeavor, meaning it's going to probably take us years to be able to do the full validation on all the different types of diesels and diesel manufacturers. And then we're doing a new product, which I haven't said anything. We started off a long time ago when I first did the invention. It was called the EconoValve. It was a much cheaper version. It wasn't computerized. It's just a disposable one. So we're thinking about reintroducing that, which we could go to then third world countries and do deals with some of the other nations like Brazil or like the Philippines or Indonesia, where it's a huge problem with emissions. But the thing is, the consumer cannot afford a $400 valve. So if we could get something, the EconoValve, that would be disposable and, did more for the emissions, maybe less for the fuel economy, but it would actually help their environment. If we could do something and be able to sell it for roughly $100, that would be a big win-win.
Right. Are you I know you probably can't divulge much of this, but are you working on other inventions or other future patents?
Right now, there's a patent process called the OBD3. That one will be, that's a great one because, as you know, we had OBD1, OBD2, and OBD3 is more of a monitoring system. So we have a device that actually sits in locomotives or sits in trucks, or especially in what you call stationary diesel. The AQMD has a big problem, but you have all these diesels like compressors, generators. These are huge engines everywhere. Even like, you look at an aircraft carrier, you might have 25 diesel engines in it. And they're huge engines. Some of these engines, you can walk into the crankcase and you could climb up a ladder in one of the cylinders. These things are huge. And their blow-by is just unbelievable. So what this does, it's a monitoring system that sits on the exhaust on an engine and actually has a sniffer in the exhaust. So it automatically, it's like a cell phone built into it. So what it does is you could program it to at any time or randomly from any place in the world be able to access it, turn it on, and be able to do samples of the emissions. Or it could be automatic. It could do it on certain parts of the day, parts of the month. It could keep it on, off. Everything could be pre-programmed, but the beauty of it is you could actually have it on the Internet, so the regulators wouldn't even have to leave their office. They could be checking engines all over the country. And in some cases, and I know people don't like this, but in some cases, if it was a stationary engine and it was over-polluting, they could actually shut it off. The main thing is to be able to make the operators, accountable for the emissions they put out. So not only could then the regulators have the teeth or be able to, and people don't like the regulators, but you got to admit they've done a great job on keeping our environment clean. I don't like some of the stuff they're doing now, where they tell you, you can't eat a hamburger. That's ridiculous. But the thing is, for cleaning the air, they've done a good job. So the OBD3 would be a thing that is a monitoring system. We have two different versions of it, depending on which way that they go. We want to be the only product that's out there that is fully automatic, that could be controlled by the Internet and be controlled by a group of people that actually could modify or check all the engines in the nation, whether they're mobile or whether they're stationary, and be able to then, if they have to, if they have a certain period of time that they have to clean the exhaust or the emissions. And then diesel, you have particulate matter and you have nitrous oxide. You don't have hydrocarbons or carbon monoxide. But the other two, particulates, is really bad. That's what China has a huge problem because, you have asthma there. You see all those coal factories. Everything is just polluting. Pretty soon, China, you're not going to even be able to see it because it'll smoke. So this is the type of thing which they'll be able to. So it's a huge thing to Savvy because it's the future. So this is, they're never going to get rid of cleaning the air. Look, the population's already 7 billion, and it won't be long before it's 13 billion. And there's a lot of pollution. Not only because carbon. I mean, we're all carbon units, right? So we have to do all our job to keep the carbon down. So I'd say that one of our biggest goals is to reduce the carbon footprint and get rid of some of these gases. And if we just have to keep reburning them on the fly in real time and just keep reburning them and burn them until there's nothing left on everything we do, then that's a solution. It's no good to just filter them and then you got to get rid of the filter and then bury them or whatever you do. The best thing to do is to just continuously burn, and be able to keep it so it doesn't go into the environment. And then you have something that's sustainable and something that's mobile. That means it could be functioning while it's being used. The trick thing is to reburn and recycle on the fly in real time.
Absolutely. Mr. Monros, I could sit here and talk to you for 3 hours. So this has really been a complete joy. I mean, this is you're really dynamic, and you're the passion that you bring in, the excitement that you believe in your company is pretty phenomenal. But let me end with one final question with one of our audience. There have been several PRs regarding fleet testing and fleet sales.
Right.
One in particular was the LA Fire Department. Where does the testing and possible sales stand regarding them?
Okay, there's the thing with the fire department. I guess we had the first generation was with the flow control. But the biggest thing about the fire department, when we started engaging with them, it was during the fires. And every time we went there, it was hard to get those vehicles to be there. I don't know how many trips we made there where the vehicle would get there and say, no, sorry, it's on the road. Because, these are 24-hour calls. They're always in the field. So we have made appointments to go back and put the second generation on. We put that on a back burner for 2 reasons. We put that on a back burner because, first of all, they didn't really have a budget. But we're talking to them every day. The diesel product's really what they want. But I guarantee you that we actually have a great working relationship with them, and it won't be long. We're scheduled to go and replace the first generation with the second generation. It won't be long while they actually did some PR on us. So there's no doubt that we will close that deal, but I feel that some of these other fleets are closed first. If I get permission from some of these companies that have already purchased from them, we're hoping to do those PRs within weeks. And, I might say maybe a month, but right now we're going to be doing PRs on some of the activities, because we go to a lot of shows. We go to green shows, we go to SEMA, we have all kinds. We just came back from an Asian Expo, which, it sounds like these things aren't productive, but it's getting the word out there. It's getting our visibility out there. And it's huge because it's amazing how much business these shows actually give us. And I would have never thought that would be the case. So that's what we're doing PRs on now. We do have some PRs ready to go, and all we're doing is waiting for permission from the actual clients. Some of them are municipalities. The others are fleets and big fleets, really big fleets. And so we'll be doing those PRs, and they'll show the sales, and I think people are going to be really happy when they see the numbers. And the thing is, in the police department, we're still right now, we're programmed to actually go there, replace the existing valves, the ones that they have with the flow control, put in the plug and play, and hopefully, eventually, that will turn into an order. Again, you're working with a municipality. Their budgets are really restricted right now.
Especially in California.
I'll tell you what, it's hard. It's like squeezing blood out of a turnip. It's really hard, because right now there's no money. As you see, California is $26 billion in the hole.
Right.
But we'll give it to them. We do work with them, and we already got an order from them. It was a small order, but it was about a $12,000 order. But it is what it is. But we did already close a deal with them.
Great. Well, Mr. Monros, we would like to thank you, for taking the time out to speak to our audience, and also we'd like to extend you an open invitation to join us on the radio show in the future. Great job, and that was some great stuff, and I'm sure the audience would like you to keep on going. Frankly, though, we're almost out of time.
I know. Well, that's great. It flew by for me. When you have a good time, that's what I'm saying. The year goes by so fast for me because we enjoy what we do. So it's like most people are sitting there watching a ticker. I watch a ticker maybe twice a year. Just don't have to do it. I got people calling me all the time. Hey, why'd you start so low? You know what? All I got to do is concentrate on revenues, and I know that'll take care of itself.
Well, that's awesome, guys. Sorry to cut you both off, but I got to throw something in here real quick because we got about a minute and 20 seconds left. Serge, awesome stuff. Love it. You can stay on the horn with us. Wanted to give a shout-out to IC Equities for bringing us together with you and making this all happen. And now I got to give us a little disclaimer, guys. Hope everybody enjoyed the show.
All right, so I can hang up anytime or what? You want me to hang up?
Yes, you can hang up.
Okay, I'll hang up.
Thanks for being on the show.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Stock Traders Talk Radio. All views and topics talked about on Stock Traders Talk Radio is solely for entertainment purposes. We are not professional financial advisors and always recommend you seek the advice of a professional financial advisor. Never invest in any stock featured on our show unless you can afford to lose your entire investment. The information contained on our show is based on sources which we believe to be reliable, but is not guaranteed by us as being accurate, and might not be a complete statement or summary of the available data. Stock Traders Talk Radio advises that the investments in companies profiled are commonly considered to be high risk, and use of the information provided is at the investor's sole risk. Thank you for listening to Stock Traders Talk Radio.
want this guy back on because I got a lot of questions for him. That was awesome. Check back in because we want him back. Aloha.